Here we go. This is Henry Chamberlain. I am a writer and artist. I'm speaking with Lloyd Scott, author of Election Year. Thank you for doing this interview, Lloyd.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Henry.
Let's begin with a pretty common enough question. How did you begin to do this book? What was the process that led you to Election Year?
Well, I think we've had a pretty cantankerous last 4 years. I think we can all kind of agree on that.
Yeah.
And I was actually working on another novel that I was in the process of writing and busy with, and I happened to catch a story on NPR. And they were just speaking about Russian operatives in our government, and it just kind of lit this spark inside of me. And I really started to think about what if there were Russian operatives within our government system. And from there, the kind of the concept of election year started to become fleshed out. And as I thought about it more and more and got more excited about the plot and the story and how I would write the novel, it just kind of came together for me. And so that's actually how it started. Just I was in my kitchen cooking dinner, listening to NPR, and I heard a story, and it lit a spark, and I got really excited about this concept, this idea.
Well, that makes sense. Were you involved in politics in any way? What kind of background do you have?
Actually, I'm a sign language interpreter. I work as an educational sign language interpreter. I work for colleges and also for school districts, and I interpret for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And so I love it. It's an amazing job, and you get to be in classrooms, and you never stop learning new and interesting things. So I don't have a political background, but I did work in Washington, D.C. for 8 years as a sign language interpreter. So you really come across a lot of different opportunities to be involved and interpret for different events and really have this exposure. I got to go to different government functions, and so I think taking that background and this experience that I've had of being this observer, of being this person who's looking in on this world kind of also helped me to write this novel.
Well, the character of Maverick Malone, she's deep in the Washington scene, and it's a very rich world that you've created. So I just kind of assumed you might have been part of it. And in a way you were, since you were in the D.C. area. You pick up things, as you say.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. And I definitely feel like I was a part of that scene because, like I said, it's almost like you're undercover yourself. You're there, but you're not really there. So you get to be this person who's in that world and has an eye in on that world, but nobody's really paying attention to you other than that you're facilitating communication and getting to do this amazing job that I love and have been very honored and proud to do. But it just, you get to be enmeshed in this world and to see these different things and to have these experiences and to be on the outside looking in, which I think, is something that I have done in other aspects of my life as well. So, yeah.
Well, I imagine that's going to carry over to a sequel of this. You have this background or this scene, this world, universe you've created, so I can see it working its way to other books if that's your intention. Or
I could see that too. I think part of me is definitely a maverick myself and who I am. I think I'm just kind of more of a person who stands outside the lines. So I definitely think that is just part of my experience in being the person that I am and in having the life experiences that I've had. So I definitely, I think as a writer, the essence of who you are carries over into your novels. It seeps into your writing. Whether you mean to have it be that way or not. Consciously or subconsciously, I think I am every character in election year, even the gross of characters, that I'm kind of poking fun at. There is that part of me that's a part of my personality, and I think you can see that. I don't know if that's you have that same experience, but I think you can see that too with other writers, where you can kind of catch glimpses of their personality, not just in the main characters, but in all the characters. I think it's just kind of all encompassing.
Yeah, you totally lose yourself in the process. That's generally, I can't believe the connection I've made to your book, because it's because of my novel, At Max in America. I was looking for something similar. And so there are a lot of similarities going on, especially with race and mixed race. Oh my goodness, these are a lot of coincidences. But yeah, so I'm mixed race myself. My mom was Mexican, my dad Caucasian, whatever that means, because it's and so. And then the whole issue of the other, and the other, it wasn't as trendy back when I was in college, and I remember asking a professor, "What's your take on the other?" And she didn't know. So it was like not, it was that deep in the academic world. But now everybody's into otherness and knowing about it and talking about it.
Hey, we were there first, right?
Yeah.
We're the others before the others became cool.
But it's like for me, and well, for a lot of people who are mixed race, you can't determine what race that person is, and so you kind of can shape shift in a way. So can you speak to that? Because it's you talk about that in your book. What can you share with readers or listeners right now about that?
Well, I think that's just something that has been my experience. I have an African American father and a Caucasian mother. They met in Idaho, of all places, when they were in college. And they fell in love, and they got married. My mom's family objected to the union, and so they cut my mom off. And then my older sister was born, and they made the decision that they didn't want to miss out on their grandchildren's lives, and so they accepted my father, and they accepted us. And in fact, my grandfather, my papa, and I had a very special relationship. And one of the things that he said to me before he died was, your parents always tell you that you're black, because I don't know about for you, but for me, my parents were not sure what we were going to encounter, and they wanted to prepare us for the world. Mm-hmm. And in the world, I think the leading consensus has always been, if you are biracial, if you're white and you're black, then you're automatically deemed as black. And so they wanted to prepare us for that. And my papa said to me one day, don't forget about me. Don't forget about my heritage. And I never have, because he loved me so much, and he believed in me so much, and he wanted me to be a writer. And I think, your parents do the best they can to kind of shape this narrative of how the world is going to be for you. But when I grew up and when I went out into the world, what happened was that I would just be walking around doing my thing, and, the way that people greeted me was either it would be, hola, or where are you from? What country are you from? And I just kind of thought, well, this is interesting. Nothing had prepared me for that. I thought you guys said everyone was going to think I was black, and that was not the case. And it is kind of a race shifty thing, depending on who's looking at you.
Yeah.
I was late for work one day, and I needed gas, and I lived in Maryland, and I would commute to D.C. just for the sake of, expense of living in that area. And so I hurried into a gas station, and the owner of the station was in there, and as soon as I walked through the door, he got to his feet, and he was so happy. He was this lovely older gentleman, and he cried out, "You are from my country!" And I was like, oh, and I was like, no, I'm from this country. And he was like, yes, but originally, you are from my country. And I was like, no, I'm from this country. And he was like, yes, but your parents are from my country, and you are doing well. And I was like, no, I'm from this country. I'm biracial. And I tried to explain it to him, and we kind of had this language barrier, and so he kind of got a little, off-put, and he didn't really understand what I was trying to tell him. But it's just experiences like that where where people look at you and they see something in you that they relate to themselves from whatever country they're from. And I think for me, that was something that I wasn't expecting to encounter in my life, but something that I have, and something that's really neat and that I really find precious and I appreciate. But it also gives you a different lens to look at the world that I don't think monoracial people, get to view. I know I've been mistaken for being Native American, and the person that thought I was Native American also thought that I lived on a reservation loaded with stray dogs and rabies. And I was horrified. I was horrified that they said that to my face.
Yeah.
And I was horrified that that was what their conception of being Native American in America was. And, I had two thoughts on that. Wow, I can't believe they would say that to my face. And, wow, I can't believe that Native American people in America have to deal with this. And also when I've been mistaken for being Hispanic, I put it in the book, but I actually got chased by a group of teenagers one morning as I walked to work because they thought I was Hispanic, and they were screaming at me in Spanish, and, I just turned to them with my little Starbucks cup, and it was like, hi, kids, to let them know, hey, whatever you think I am doesn't matter. I'm an American. You can tell by my accent, knock it off. But they were not deterred. And, they started to chase me, and it was terrifying. And, I thought, my gosh, how horrible for immigrants who are coming to this country, who may have a language barrier, that they would ever encounter an experience like that. And I think it just really opens your eyes and helps you see, not only the prejudice that people of your own race and your own background experience, but the prejudice that just people of color in America experience overall. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world because, I look at most things through the lens of humor. I take most things in life with a grain of salt. And, I find most things amusing. And, it makes for some really good, interesting stories.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't trade my perspective for anything either. With my mom, she was so stubborn and, her just being herself, and she was kind of a victim of circumstance in a way because my father swooped her out of what she knew, her context, and she never quite adapted to being in a contemporary American context. She never quite learned English. It's like a typical person trying to learn French. You never learn French.
Right.
You try it, but you maybe know a few words, but you never quite learn it.
Right.
She learned it where she could speak it, more or less, but if the prejudice is there, a person will just zone it out. Oh, I don't understand a word you're saying. So, yeah. But all that skepticism she had, I kept that. It's a healthy skepticism on a lot of stuff.
What do you mean, skepticism?
Well, just like you don't just fall in line with the culture.
I agree. Yeah.
I wanted to focus a little on the main characters, Maverick Malone and Sonny Wainwright, a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe you can tell us, give us a taste of what Maverick Malone is about. She's a media content manager for this high-powered politician, Sonny Wainwright.
Well, I think Maverick is your classic underdog. She is a media content manager for a popular senator, Sonny Wainwright, who was on track to become the first female president of America. And Maverick is just this kind of Pollyanna, anti-heroin, 80s underdog, makes good kind of person. So she's very idealistic, and she has a lot of belief in America, in our country, and she has a great love for our country. And she's the kind of person that looks for the good in everyone. and kind of looks on the bright side. But when she gets this inkling that all is not right with Sunny and with her campaign, then she goes digging and she looks for the truth and she refuses to be deterred. Sunny Wainwright, the senator who is on track to become America's first female president, is the kind of character who is very sure of herself. She knows her place in the world. She knows what she wants to accomplish. She's very powerful. She wields her power without really unapologetically, I would say. She wields her power unapologetically. She knows who she is, and she's very assured in that. But when you get to the twist in the story with Sunny, her backstory, which I'm not going to reveal, you have to read the novel to find that out, you see what created her, and you see why she is who she is. Now, in all honesty, I am more like Maverick than I am like Sunny. I would say Maverick is a lot like who I am as a person. And the character of Sunny is more outside of myself. But when I created the backstory of Sunny, I actually used the prejudice and the obstacles that I face, and I flipped them. And I used that energy to create Sunny. And even with my new work that I'm working on, I got this idea for this new story that I haven't started yet, but I will be starting soon. And it was almost like I could hear Sunny in my head saying, you have all these thoughts about this certain issue. What are you going to do about it? What's your action going to be? Mm-hmm. And so I think Sunny is like that. She's that person that is going to go out and create change in the world. And Maverick wants to create change in the world as well. But in some aspects, she's too nice and maybe even too idealistic to push through and create that change at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think towards the end of the book, she has taken some of that energy from Sunny and she's changed in a way. Her eyes have been opened and she's grown as a person. She's come to maturation in a way that she can push herself more and put herself out there. And so I think, both of those characters are female characters that I wanted to create. And I just wanted them to be who they were. I didn't want Maverick, who is also, a biracial character who's black and white. She has an African-American father and a Caucasian mother. I didn't want her to in any way be a stereotype. I wanted her to be somebody who was just who she is. Just a person, a personality, living her life and having these experiences and relating to people through these experiences and relaying these experiences. And the same with Sunny, especially with the backstory that I crafted. I was very careful in the way that I wrote her and in the perceptions that I put out for her, and I made sure to emphasize that Sunny is an individual, that she acts as an individual, because I think when you're crafting characters and when you're trying to write characters that are of different races, that you have to be extremely careful to be respectful to the experiences that other people have. And I really wanted to have that come through as a writer. That was a very important thing to me.
I wanted to touch on this big question I have for you. Your novel, it came out before George Floyd and everything that's come since, but dealing with race, that's been going on for generations. What do you think about race issues today, and what can we do to create a better world? You talk about that a lot in your novel.
I really think this is a great opportunity for us. I see what's happening today as something that can help to move us forward. I think that we can open the conversation regarding race, and we can do it in a very respectful and very healthy way. I think we need to have the right mediators in place so that we can have a conversation that will actually benefit not just white people and not just black people in America, but people of all races in America. The thing that I think that I see for myself, my personal observation, is that people are too separated into their own either cultural backgrounds or their own racial communities. And I understand that. I understand the commonality of wanting to be around like-minded people who have a certain, cultural aspect or have common experiences because they're the same race as you. But I also think that creates an America where we're divided because we don't know each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe where, being an other such as we are comes in to kind of refute this concept that, if you're black, you're going to be more comfortable with black people. If you're white, you're going to be comfortable with white people. Instead of just looking at people as who they are, as their inner essence of who they are, their personality, of what makes them who they are. I don't know about you, but for me, and I don't think that this is a common experience for monoracial people, as a biracial person, when I got to about my freshman year of high school, I had to decide for myself what I was going to do, who I was going to be. And I really had to ask myself, are you going to, behave in this way so that you can get acceptance from the black community? Are you going to behave in this way so you can get acceptance from the white community? And I think the overall thing that I decided for myself was that I was just going to be myself, that I was just going to be who I am, that I was going to celebrate my personality and who and what I am and what that means for me.
Yeah.
And I really think that, when I grew up and I went out into the world, the thing I found most disappointing was this breakdown, especially when I lived in Maryland, because there's a lot of diversity in Maryland. But it was just little pockets of, people kind of living separately but together. And I thought, well, this is very interesting. And like I said before, I think the number one thing that holds us back is that we're still segregated and we don't really know each other. We don't live communally. We don't take the time to really know about each other's backgrounds and about each other's history. So for me, I see this movement as a positive impetus to move us forward. This is an evolution of America. It's time for a reckoning of our history, of where we've come from, of where we've been, of who we are, and of who we can be moving forward. And I think that we need to dismantle the myth of the other, and we need to look at ourselves as America, as who we are as a country, and what that means overall, what our culture, what our overriding culture is in America. I think we have so much opportunity here. I mean, I love being somewhere where people from all over the world are here. I know I was out and about in Seattle, your hometown of all places, and somebody asked me if I was Micronesian. They were from Micronesia, and, it's embarrassing, but I was like, I don't even know where that is. So I went home and looked at the map, and I was like, oh, there's Micronesia, and then I Googled the people, and I was like, okay, I can see it. And it's just like, it's things like that where we have this opportunity for anything to happen. And we have an opportunity to show the world how humanity can coexist if we can wrap our head around it. But I think, the blight of our history is something that we need to reckon with, and this is the reckoning. We need to listen to the people of color in this country, and we need to right our wrongs, and then we need to move forward together as Americans. And I guess for me, being American and living in America is part of my identity because that's who I am. You know, I kind of always thought of myself as the new all-American. You know, I am created by this country. This is my culture. This is what I have. You know,
Yeah.
I really feel steeped in who we are as a people, and we are a people with just so much opportunity. So I'm actually excited about this. I see this as a step towards progress, and I believe good will come out of it.
Oh, I totally agree. I don't want to take away from that. That's just so well put. I want to take a little pause there, and then I want to add that I think common sense, you know, that has to play that could play such a big role in helping people figure things out. I think if a person comes from a more diverse area, common sense rules the day. But if a person comes from a less diverse area, then you have to join a seminar. Or,
Yeah.
So I think you know exactly what I mean by that. I'll just go ahead and say in Seattle they are having problems with having to join seminars, and I don't know why that has to be. It just because I think it's like a seeking of perfection. It's a meticulous, neurotic thing that happens to some people. And I was in New Orleans not too long ago, before COVID, and it's a very different circumstances there. I mean, the diversity, I think, just it brings in the common sense. Because I casually said African American, and a person corrected me and said, "No, you just say black. It's just black." And I said, "Oh, I'm from Seattle," and so.
It's true, and I think that there's, you know, I think there's that level of, I think overall Americans are good people.
Yeah.
I think we have good hearts.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that, again, that concept of the other. And I think there are some white people where it's like deer in headlights, what do I do, you know? And for me, that's where I come in. And it's kind of like, as a biracial person, sometimes I feel like a walking educator. Because, you know, you'll tell people your background and they'll have questions, you know. And I always try and answer those questions. And at the same time, you know, living in Maryland, I encountered some black people who had questions about white people, you know. And so you always try and answer those questions. And, you know, you kind of become a mediator of sorts, the go-between. But you think in your head, geez, if you guys just talk to each other, you would know this stuff already. I mean, it's not so far apart.
Yeah.
My parents have been married for over 40 years. They're very happy. You know, they're a very successful couple. And their race has nothing to do with their union. They get along because they have similar personalities. They have similar interests. They have similar life goals, you know. So you realize very early on that people put so much emphasis on race. And I think for monoracial people, they find a lot of their identity in their race, in their background. And for myself as a biracial person, I've found my identity in who I am, what my interests are, you know, just kind of like what the inner essence of my thoughts are and my beliefs and my viewpoints on the world, and, you know, kind of like what I can feel, my connection to the universe and everything, and that's who I am. So I think that, you know, when you're steeped in this idea of I am X, Y, and Z, then it's harder to look out and see, really, we're all just people, and everybody's got a different personality, and you might actually connect really well with this person over here because you both like this quirky thing, and you might get along like a house on fire. And I think that, you know, sometimes people are so steeped in their identities that it holds them back from really seeing the other side of things. I know when I lived in Montana, I had a very nice friend who was worried about the amount of Hispanic people who were moving into the area. And she said, well, my family is Swedish, and we have our Swedish traditions, and I don't want to change that. And I thought, well, how does somebody who is maybe from Mexico moving in next door to you change your Swedish traditions? Mm-hmm. It's not like they're going to show up at your house, kick the door in, and be like, all right, here's what we're going to do from now on. So it's just like, I think people have, again, that fear of the other, and I think as biracial people, we just totally annihilate all those lines. We just blow them to smithereens, and we blur everything. Yeah. And, we look at things through this completely different perspective. And honestly, I wouldn't want to be anything else. I mean, it's just so interesting. I know, every day when you go out in the world and people see you, you encounter something different and new. And it really helps you be somebody with an open mind.
Yeah. Well, as you say, I remain hopeful that there is a lot of good out there in the world. So I wanted to invite you to share a short story with us, if you like.
I would love to.
Sure.
This story is called The Salsa.
Okay.
Good morning, shoppers. It's a beautiful Tuesday, and we've got bountiful deals for you this fine day. Be sure to check out the 2-for-1 special on paper towels as you browse. Don't forget that honey ham is only 99 cents a pound at the deli. We haven't had specials like this since 1999. And on that note, 1999 by Prince starts to blast through the speakers. An overall-clad woman with blue hair breaks into a dance with her shopping cart. Organic grapes. A wheel on my trolley steers sideways, and I narrowly miss a neatly stacked display of bread. I consult my list. I mustn't forget the lentils this time. Mr. Fluffy McSunshine does so like to have them in his organic homemade meals. He's such a doggy foodie. Oh, date syrup. Fantastic. It's perfect in a smoothie. Not overly sweet. It has just the right oomph. Kale. Kale. How could I forget the kale? One simply cannot make organic roasted sausages with grapes over polenta without kale. Oh, what a nice day. The sun is finally shining. After all the rain we've had, it's so lovely to have a spot of sun. Maybe after I get home, I can put the groceries away and sit outside with a cup of coffee for a few moments. Just a little time all to myself. I push my cart straight towards the gluten-free section. She catches my eye through the plate glass window. Her expertly dyed blonde hair shines as she skims her cruiser bike into a place right in front of the grocery store. I spot a big metal basket firmly attached to her handlebars and watch as she laughingly shakes out her reusable grocery bag. Boomer, I tag her immediately, noting her fresh from Woodstock new retiree wardrobe. Definitely a boomer. Oh gosh, baking soda. I need those big boxes of baking soda to make my chemical-free bathroom cleaner. I turn the shopping cart like a schooner and head back towards the laundry aisle. Well, that's it. Mission accomplished. I crumple the list into my pocket and head towards the check stand. I almost don't see her squatting on the floor in front of the big cans of organic cooked tomatoes until she looks up. Have you seen this deal? Her gauzy tunic dusts the grimy floor as she rests her hand atop the gigantic can. I mean, $2.99 for this humongous can of cooked tomatoes? And it's organic. You should get one of these. Her face beams up at me with the knowing certainty of one who is offering sage advice. I smile and shake my head. My long, heavy, dark hair ripples out around me. I'm not really a fan of cooked tomatoes, but that is a great deal, I offer politely, catching the rainbow shimmer from the sun on my tan skin as I wave my hand at the price sign. Well, I shift my weight, readying myself to push the cart onwards towards freedom. No, really, you should get this. It's a great buy, and it's organic. You'll save a lot of money. I'm not sure why she's worried about my finances, but her insistence is off-putting. I'm not really a fan of cooked tomatoes, I say again, trying not to seem like a food snob. Besides, I don't know what I would do with a 6-pound can like that. Oh, that's easy, she shoots, rocking back on her heels. You make all your salsa. You just get this big can of tomatoes and use it for all the salsa you make. I'm sure you eat a lot of salsa. This is perfect for salsa. I bet your family would love it if you use this for salsa. I'm flummoxed. Why does she keep saying salsa like that to me? I look around, half wondering if someone is punking me. Her pronunciation of salsa reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where Jerry says, people like to say salsa. Excuse me, do you have any salsa? We need more salsa. Where's the salsa? I just keep hearing salsa repeated like that, with the emphasis on the sol and then the so, like that Seinfeld episode. Suddenly it feels like I'm in an alternate reality. I make my salsa with fresh tomatoes, I say, unconsciously mimicking Jerry. Oh, but you'll save so much money if you make your salsa using this big can of tomatoes. Don't you see? She blows her bangs off her forehead and grabs the can. What in the salsa, Heidi-ho, is going on here? And then it hits me. Poor thing, she's drunk. Well, these boomers are just going to have to learn to adjust to their new reality. I survey the fray at the bottom of her flared jeans. She probably went out to lunch with her friends and had one too many. Well, at least she's riding her bike, though you can still get a ticket for that. Well, you know how these boomers are. Hopefully they aren't going to start having substance abuse problems as they move into retirement. But, well, boomers. That's okay, I say loudly, but in a firm and gentle tone. I'm aware that in her inebriated state, it might be hard for her to comprehend what I'm saying. I think I'm good for right now. I'm going to pass on the big can of tomatoes. Okay, but you're missing a great deal, she says from her perch on the floor, careful to enunciate each word. Just consider it for all your future salsa making. She jabs the can at me one last time before loading it into her bag. Sure, I say with pity. How is the store, my husband asks as we load the groceries into the kitchen. Good, I say, handing over the organic, gluten-free, hand-cut, crafted small batch chips that we both love. But there was one strange thing, I say as I close the cabinet door. What, my husband asks, ripping the chip bag open without decorum and starting to munch. This odd woman kept trying to get me to buy this big can of tomatoes. She kept talking about how I could use it for all the salsa I make. It was very bizarre. She thought you were Hispanic, my husband says, popping open the refrigerator door in search of a finely brewed beer. Oh, I say, her insistence on all my salsa eating suddenly making sense. Ugh, can't the seeping stereotypes surrounding race ever get a break? Well, I thought she was a drunken boomer, I say, reaching for a chip. So I guess we both made assumptions. Interesting, my husband says, wandering into the family room in search of the YouTube. And that's it. I just, it's just one of those things where you take those moments that happen where it's a situation and somebody thinks you're something that you're not, and you think maybe they're something that they're not, and it all makes for hilarity. So
well, that was a wonderful short story, and a perfect one to recite, especially with all the salsa.
Well, that actually really happened. And I really did have that thought. I really did think, why does she keep talking about salsa? What is this with the salsa? Why is she insisting on all this salsa? And I really had this thought, because I don't know about you, but when I'm out in public, I'm just kind of enjoying myself and giving everybody a smile, and I forget what I look like. I don't really think about it. And so I don't think about how I strike people as I stroll up. And, so when you're having these situations, for me, a lot of times in my head, I'm like, well, what in the heck is going on here? And why are they acting so odd? So I really had that thought with that woman that, oh no, poor thing, she is so inebriated, she's drunk. You know, and I don't think that was the case. Looking back, I think she had made that assumption about me. I made that assumption about her, and you look at it and you're like, well, that's pretty hilarious. You know, it's funny.
Well, yeah, a lot of this is good intentions.
Yes, it is.
Or I don't know, not thinking things through sometimes. And like you say, it's hard to, you have to step outside yourself and survey the whole situation, and then, maybe it'll look differently to you. But right as it's happening, that's when a conflict can occur. Because I was in a situation, and there's so many. I'll just pick one out of so many I could tell you about. I was at a front desk in the public's eye, and a person came up to me, and he said, "Oh, well, I assume that's something that for you and your people."
Oh.
And I said, and immediately I got my back went up. Said, "My people," and he got all sad and deflated, and it was a very strange situation because to make a long story short, I put on a production, and it had to do with Hispanics and stuff. And so in his mind, because he's monoracial, he just thought of me as this Mexican person putting on a show, and these are my people. And so when some white person comes up and says, "Your people," it immediately you get like, what are you saying? So it was a very weird situation. And it happened too quickly. I couldn't step out of myself and survey it and say, "Oh, well, that's fine. You probably didn't mean to say my people."
It is true, and I think that's why I kind of look at it through this humorous lens, because I feel so secure with who I am. I know who I am. You know, you can think I'm 1,000 different things, but I know exactly who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that has just been my saving grace, and that has been what has helped me just look at it and laugh, you know, and just create these stories out of it, because you can either be offended or you can do two things. You can laugh, and then you can educate people.
Yeah.
And you can kind of say, well, look, you know, here's the deal. This is what I am, and, you know, you can help people to come to some kind of consensus of understanding. And again, you can be that, not that biracial people are tasked with this, because I don't think that's fair to put the yoke on biracial people to be the go-betweens, to be responsible for educating the people of various communities that they're a part of. But you do have this opportunity to step into that role. And for me, the neat thing has been, you know, I had this experience where I was actually at a work conference, and we were done, and there was three of us who were talking, and you know, we were all three women. It was me and then two Caucasian people, and one of the women started to, I was actually in New Orleans, she started to say disparaging things about black people. And so I was just giving her enough rope to hang herself, and I was listening, but my other coworker, who knew me well and knew what my background was, could not contain herself. She was losing her mind. She was going crazy. I mean, she was practically climbing the walls, and so suddenly she just screams out, "She's black! She's black! She's black! She's part black! She's part black!" You know, and the other lady looks at me, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I had no idea." And I said, "You know what? That's okay." And we proceeded to have just this very honest conversation, this very open, very honest exchange of dialogue. And after that, I saw that woman again. I did not, you know, initiate a lawsuit or sue the company. I could have, but instead I chose to actually develop an interpersonal relationship with the woman who had made those remarks. And it made for some very honest conversations. And she actually, I do believe that her viewpoint shifted. And later, my other coworker who had, you know, who couldn't handle it and had been the one to reveal my identity, my racial background, said to me, "How could you sit there and how could you listen to what she was saying?" And, you know, it's like, well, I could do one of two things. I could be totally offended, or I could listen to what she had to say and get her viewpoint so I could know what her viewpoint is. And then we could have an open and honest discussion about it. So I think that that's, something where you just have so much opportunity to be this person who kind of brings this different perspective. And that's really one of the biggest impetuses for me in my writing, is to give people this view in that, we're realizing that a lot of things are fluid in this day and age. Gender is a fluid spectrum. Well, race is too.
Yeah.
People can think they're monoracial, but hey, 23 and me later, they're like, I didn't know this at all. I thought I was this, and you're like, how you feeling about that? You still feeling all German now that you found out you're not German at all? It's like, we put so much stock in these categories that we've created. You are black, you are white, you are Asian, you are Hispanic. Yeah. And it's just like, is that even true? Is that even really who we are? And I understand, connections to culture and to traditions and to food and all that stuff. And I think that's very special. But really, we're all just human beings. We're all just people. We're all just here doing the best we can. And if we find the things in common, if we find the commonalities, then we will win for sure. I firmly believe that.
Well, that's a perfect place to close things. And I have other things I could ask you, and I could go on to detours, but I don't know if I should. I want to emphasize that election year, even though it's a political satire, it's not just that. It's a political thriller or just an outright action thriller. It's a lot of things. It is.
It is. I think it's very multifaceted, just like it's very complicated and complex, as I am myself. It has a lot of personalities, as I do, too. So, yes. Yeah. Well, I wanted to write something that broke down the barriers of race, that broke down the barriers of gender, but most of all, I wanted to write something that was a story of hope, a story of unity, a story of perseverance, and a story of goodness. Because I do believe that that's what and who America is. We're all here in this land. We have so much opportunity to create a utopia for humanity. I mean, I know that utopia is not really a realistic ideal to shoot for, but hey, we can get as far as we can get. And I really believe that as we dismantle these myths that we've held on to, we will find that, in the words of Maya Angelou, we are more alike than unalike. I really do believe it.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Lloyd.
Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you for reading my book, and I just want to say that I love your book, Max in America. I really enjoyed reading it.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you so much for contacting me, and I really enjoyed speaking with you very much. Very, very